Hi, welcome to Game Changer Chat. It's May 8th. Happy Friday. And today we're going to be still continuing our conversation about mental illness and removing the stigma. We have a HR guru with us today, and I'd like to welcome her to Game Changer Chat, Dr. Robinson. Welcome to Game Changer Chat.
Hi, how are you doing?
Wonderful. I'm so happy to have you with us. Just a little background. Dr. Robertson was my instructor when I was in graduate school about 10 years ago. And I think it's always important to stay in contact with people who help mold you into the person that you are today. And so I just want to say thank you for being a wonderful instructor. And I'm grateful to have you on the show today. And with that being said, Dr. Robinson, a lot of people do not know your background and what makes you an expert in HR and leadership. So go ahead, tell the world what makes you an expert in that.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this incredible opportunity, Miss Mayberry. And also, I want to say that I'm so proud of you. You have blossomed into be a beautiful entrepreneur young lady, and I'm so proud of you. But the last 15 years, I have developed curriculum in HR for various community colleges and university across the Washington, D.C. area. Some of the schools that I have developed curriculum have been Webster University, University of Maryland Global Campus, Prince George's Community College, Go Owls, and I have done customized training for a lot of companies. So HR is about knowing people, about believing in people, about creating opportunities for people, and about seeing the future in people. So if you like people, then HR is for you.
Absolutely. Yes, you definitely have to be a people person to be in HR because people, that's your most valuable asset, as I like to say when I'm doing trainings on leadership development. So let's get right into it. What are ways inclusive leaders can mitigate biases when communicating about the coronavirus?
Make sure that they stick with the CDC guidelines. They need to make sure that they provide updates with what the company is doing to make sure that they're going to do their very best to provide an environment where employees can come in and feel be comfortable, be their self, and be productive. Also, they have to maintain a relationship with their employees, such as develop an at work home agreement, which tells employees what they expect from them, where they're going to meet with them, how they're going to obtain information with them. So, a lot of communication is being done online through Zoom, Social Live, and other online applications. So, this is the time for employers really to get to know their employees, get to know them as a person, get to know them as an employee, and to expand their horizon. Because now, more than ever, because of this COVID-19 situation, companies are going to have to think outside the box. No longer can they group think. They have to be creative and coming up with a system which is a win-win system for the employee, the employer, and the customers.
Absolutely. And I forgot to mention this. If you would, wherever you're tuning in from, just so we can know geographically, we know people are tuning in from all across the globe. Just type where you're tuning in from. And if this information is helpful to you, hit the like button. But please just type in where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions, Dr. Robertson is definitely interactive and full of energy. Just type your questions in the box, and she'll be happy to answer it. From an HR leadership perspective, as a result of COVID-19, what do you advise stakeholders to do when the world starts to open up gradually? Is there any advice that you can give the HRs as to best practices for their employees?
Yes, they need to come up with their own actual guidelines on what they're going to do to make sure that they keep their employees safe and that they keep their customers safe. So that needs to be entailed in a new employee handbook. The handbook needs to be updated. It also they need to also have hand sanitation stations. They need to provide their employees with masks and with gloves, and just make sure that they understand that social distancing is going to be a part of our present and our future. So they're going to have to make sure that everybody understands what they need to do so that everyone can be productive but also be safe. So they're probably going to have new employee orientation as well.
In other words, this is a new culture. This is not just something that's just going to be happening here in 2020. This is now just going to be part of the new culture of our organization. So it should be ingrained in the culture. I like that. Um, so switching gears a little bit, what do employees need to know about the CARES Act?
Well, one of the things they need to know about the CARE Act is the Pay Check Protection Program. And the Pay Check Protection Program basically says a couple things. You hire employees, and it is based on if an employee has COVID-19 or if one of their family members has COVID-19, they can have up to 2 weeks of paid sick leave if they're unable to come in or able to do any type of work. Also, they allow 2 weeks of paid sick leave as 2/3 of their employees' regular pay rate if they are caring for an individual or they're caring for a child that's under 18 years of age and they can't provide them any type of schooling or they can't provide them any daycare because we're still at the stay-at-home orders. So it's very important that when employers obtain this paycheck protection program, that they're understanding that this money is one to keep their employees on the payroll and also to help them to cover the overhaul bills such as electricity, gas, maybe security. So this is all a part of protection program. So it's going to be a lot of documentation because if someone is tested positive for COVID-19, they're going to have to provide documentation to indicate from their physician that they do have this or they're caring for someone that has this COVID-19 disease.
Okay. And then before I get into a question that we have, we also have to remember the privacy that employers can't divulge that information to colleagues about who was tested positive. They still need to keep that information confidential. That's an important piece to remember. Shelly from Pennsylvania has a
That's
question.
correct. That's part of the HIPAA.
Right, part of HIPAA. Shelly, how can we safely work with masks on all day? Won't that be harder to breathe after a few hours?
Yes. According to the health physicians and healthcare workers, you're only supposed to have those masks on for approximately 2 hours before you take it off and get oxygen. Because if you have it on for a long period of time, you will lose oxygen, especially if you don't have the surgical breathable mask, such as one of these. These are surgical breathable masks where you can have it on for at least 2 hours or sometimes maybe three. If you have the N95 mask on, which is the mask that the healthcare workers have on, you're not used to breathing because you have to breathe a certain way because it takes your oxygen content away from your body. There have been several incidents that have occurred where people have been driving around with N95 masks and they have actually passed out from lack of oxygen and have been into serious car accidents. So what's going to happen is that employers are going to have to allow their employees, when they start to come back and trickle back to work, to have more breaks, to make sure that the ventilation in the environment is breathable and that there's room for people to breathe and move around. So what I'm thinking is that they're going to have to phase people that maybe I work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I stay home and work Tuesday and Thursday. So they're going to have to filter out the workforce in the environment so that everybody's not going to be in their work environment all at the same time.
Okay, that's a good point. And also, perhaps if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you're able to work remotely, maybe they can consider still allowing people to work remotely if you're not working in a obviously a cleared space. Um, Levita's tuning in from Washington, D.C. Dr. Nicole Robinson is from Texas. And then she said, thank you for that answer. And then we have another question from Levita. She says, how should HR handle employees who won't accept the seriousness of COVID-19 and the need for extra precautions or guidelines?
That is an outstanding question. Just like any other um, rule or regulation that's on the books, they have to first counsel that individual. So the first time the person does not combine or with that law, then they're going to have to write them up, counsel them first, then write them up. And if it continues to be so, again, in HR, if you don't have paperwork, you don't have a paper trail. So one time you counsel them, second time you write them up, third time you send them home. And if they keep on doing that and you have paperwork, you might have to let them go. Because remember, I always tell people in HR, you do a totalitarian law, which means that you do what's good for all, not what's good for some or one.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's discuss the impact of conscious and unconscious bias on one's mental health. Can you talk to that?
Yes, it is very important that the HR manager and all of the senior managers in a organization make it clear that everyone's going to be treated equally. Everyone is going to be respected. And if you cannot treat people with respect and you cannot operate within the confinement of the laws of the organization, that you'll be asked to leave, because that is a major violation in HR, because that is considered to be harassment, hostile work environment, and that is a major violation of HR laws. So it's very important that, again, organizations to take this opportunity to rewrite their employee manuals, and to make sure that they put all of this in there, because for me, discrimination, biases, there's no place for that in a workplace.
Okay, well, to that point, let's just walk this back a little bit, and this is
Sure.
similar related. What, how do you define diversity, equality, and inclusion? Because a lot of people lump it all together, but can you explain that in simplistic terms?
Sure. Diversity is when you give companies have an opportunity that they are hiring people of various social, educational, and economical background. So you just don't have a group of one people that think the same way, that look the same way. You have people who are from a diverse background. Okay, equity means that everybody is included, that everybody has access to the same information, has the ability to apply for vacancies, and has the ability to be heard in the organization. Okay, inclusiveness means that people have an opportunity to express their opinions, to express their values without being felt like they're being targeted or that they're going to be demoted because they have a different opinion than maybe from their supervisor or from the organization. So it's very important that you allow people to express their opinion if they're doing it in a professional manner. That you also need to create what we call affinity groups. So affinity group would be if I'm an African American. So if I work for an organization that is a diversified, equity, and inclusive organization, I might say, okay, let's have people with the same backgrounds have an opportunity to have a group we call affinity groups, where they'll be able to discuss certain issues and have different concerns and be able to talk about what needs to be improved in the organization. So affinity groups have been something that educational institutions have done a long time. We see that we have fraternities and sororities. Those are example of a affinity group where people come together, and they have the same likes, or they have a same something that makes them correlated together.
Okay, thank you. And for as far as affinity groups and corporate organizations, for example, let's say Asian American affinity group, me being African American, it's still important that I be welcome to that affinity group if I want to learn more about that culture, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's very
Um,
important that human resources, excuse me, it's also important that human resources make sure that when affinity groups are started, that they have bylaws that will incorporate what you just said to make sure that no one's personal violations or personal rights are being violated.
right. Thank you. Why is it important now than ever that we have what's called like a healthy organizational culture? And you talked to this a little bit earlier about organizational cultures and how we're going to have to shift our mindsets because of COVID-19. But why is it important that leaders go back to the drawing board and start to monitor the organizational culture? Why do we need to have more of a healthy organizational culture because of this pandemic?
That is an outstanding question, Ms. Mayberry. It's very outstanding. First of all, we are dealing with a economic and emotional time that we've ever dealt with in this history. This They're saying that right now over 20.5 million people are unemployed. And so people are dealing with scenarios outside of their work that they've never dealt with before. This is worse than the Great Depression that we suffered back in the early 1900s. So it's very important that companies come up with ways. This is where you have to be creative. For example, for my particular company, Dr. Robertson's Teacher Creations, what I have done is I have developed a partnership with a yoga company that every Saturday, my employees or my students can go on to this particular website and get an hour of yoga exercise, how to teach them how to relax, how to be one with their body, how to release, and how to obtain energy, and how to deal with stress. So companies are going to have to go outside the box and say, okay, this is what we can do. This is some of the activities that we can bring online, because now companies are going to have to be able to reinvent themselves and be able to make money and be productive online as well as being in person.
Thank you for that. Okay. Well, talk to us about um, partnerships and employee engagements. Why is that critical, and how can organizations leverage that to impact their bottom line?
One of the things is that now more than ever, employees need to do three things. They need to maintain a relationship with their return customers, make sure that they're okay. They might send them a card, might send them something, a calendar, some type, or a coupon to let them know that we're thinking about you during this time. And when we do reopen, we want you to be a part of our family. Second thing, they need to create opportunities to invite new individuals to be a part of their company. So this is a great time to host webinars such as you're doing, to give people an opportunity to get to know about their company, what they represent, what they do for the communities, and what type of products and services that they are offering. And the third thing that companies need to do right now is to maintain a weekly, whether it be on the telephone or by doing a Zoom conference or a webinar, just to have just to call their employees to find out how they're doing. Do they need anything? This is an opportunity for employees to feel like they're more than just robots just working, just running around, just working all day. They're actually human beings. So I always tell people, during a crisis, this is a great time to find out what type of company you work for. If you have a company, I'm so proud to be working for Prince George's Community College, because my supervisor calls me every week to see how I'm doing. She asks how my mom is doing. Um, and so those are the companies that you want to work for and that you want to return once this COVID-19 is in a phase that we all can start going back and seeing each other face to face.
Excellent points. But not even just, I would like to add to that, not just companies you work for, but organizations that you belong to, civic organizations.
Yes,
Mentioned Divine Nine
yes,
earlier. Just during times like this, you get to see what type of leadership you have. And then also you get to also see where your deficiencies lie in your leadership and maybe your communications and your technology. And it's, don't look at it
yes.
necessarily as a default, but maybe an area in which you need to improve in the future. But absolutely excellent points. Thank you. Um, Now let's
Thank
just switch
you.
gears. You're welcome. Switch gears a little bit and talk about the dilemma of disclosing your disability. Since we're
Yes.
the theme this month is about ending the stigma with mental health. But when you want to disclose your disability in general, whether it's a mental health disability or a physical disability in the workplace, how do you recommend doing this? Because that's always a very challenging experience. I know from myself. How do you recommend you disclose your disability, either in the work setting or in academia? And
First,
one more thing,
that's an
don't forget to
outstanding
hit the like
question.
button. Don't forget to hit the like button and ask questions.
Please. That's an outstanding question because, as you know, Miss Mayberry, I have disabilities too. I have fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah.
So I have deficiencies that I have to deal with on a day to day basis. So the first thing that I did was, if I'm gonna tell you two ways how to handle the situation. If you already in the company, then you would go to your supervisor and basically indicate to that person what your disability is and how it's going to affect your day-to-day activities. Um, if you are being interviewed, that is something that you need to tell the person that is interviewing you, that I have A, B, and C disabilities. How does your company how is your company going to assist me? Because I have the skill sets that you are looking for that particular position. And remember, because of the HIPAA Act, if any person is in the organization is ever found out disclosing your information, that's a lawsuit, and that person can be fired, and there could be legal action that's going to take upon the organization. So I always say to everyone, whether it's my students or whether it's an employee in the organization, honesty is the best policy, because if you are straightforward with companies, I'm starting to understand that companies will support you because mental health, I'm so glad that you're discussing that issue, because this is mental health month. That because people, and you have a lot of superstars, and a lot of people who are in the limelight, such as yourself, who are starting to discuss mental health, is starting to become a part of society. And once it becomes a part of society and we have discussions such as what we're having tonight, then it will become second nature and companies will not have to think about it twice.
Okay, thank you. And then also, if you disclose it and they don't want you, then maybe it's their loss, is what I've had to understand in my journey. Because there's a lot of individuals and organizations that don't have a welcoming culture for individuals with disability, especially those with mental impairments. And then that's not an organization that I would thrive in because of the limitations of their mindset. So that's not somewhere where I particularly would thrive anyway. So that's what I would put out to
Yes.
individuals. You need to research the company to see if they have a welcoming organizational culture. And how do you do that? You can see what type of, by doing your due diligence and researching them, have they won awards for best company for this or that. And also, you can do informal interviews with people who have worked there. LinkedIn, we're on there now. You can reach out to some people there and talk to them about what's it really like to work there. Ping them on LinkedIn because when you go to work somewhere, I would think you would want to work there for a long period of time. So you don't just go to an
Yeah.
interview and let them do all the talking and interview them. You interview them too and ask them, like Dr. Robinson just said, what is your culture like for individuals with disabilities? And have candid conversations with them. So excellent point. Thank you so much. Um, why do you think
Thank you.
you touched on this a little bit, but I just want you to expound. Why do you think individuals living with disabilities, the lived experience is so important? Why do you think that people like celebrities or just regular Joes and Janes like myself having a voice, speaking up and having a voice at the table, the corporate table, is so important when it comes to discussions about disabilities?
Disabilities is just to me is correlated just like racism. When we as a country understand that there is room to improve and that we need to treat each other as human beings and that each one of us have a unique special um, talent that we can bring to the company, because the consumers want to support companies that look like you and I. They want people that, if you have a company that's diverse, has people with different background, and has people with different, again, economic, social backgrounds, that does have disabilities, then you will have a more of a full spectrum of products and services. And people will want to support companies that can offer a variety of services, because you have people have, again, every walk of life that is part of your company. And I think when celebrities come out and say this is not right, or about a certain topic, it gives it more authority, because in this society, people look up to role models, they look up to celebrities, they look up to superstars. And so when they put their stamp on it, it becomes a part of the discussion table. And when it gets to the discussion table, it takes individuals such as you and I to bring it and to give it a cover, and to make sure that that cover is filled with important facts and information.
Thank you for that. Let me go look and see if we have any questions. No questions? Okay. All right. Wait, what is this? It's a comment. Oh, we have a comment from Levita. Um, Dr. Levita says, if organizations do not implement the tools to measure the success of DNI, how can they effectively say is more than just a slogan? Very true, because a lot of times organizations have, they say they're all talk, but they don't actually meet up to what they're saying. So I guess she's saying, how are they measuring diversity? How are they measuring inclusion? So they need to have the tools in place to see, are they actually living up to what they're saying, or is it just all talk? Very valid point.
It is what one of the tools that they have. Most companies are now are creating a diversity inclusive officer as part of their senior management, to make sure that they are delivering a more of a well-rounded organization. Also, there's a report that companies have to do at the end is called the EEO-1 report. And an
Mm.
EEO-1 report is a report that the company has to say how many women in your company, how many males in your company, how many veterans in your company, how many people are disabled, how many people of this certain race is in your company. So that's one way that the government and that the company can gain information if they're practicing what they preach. Also, one other thing that I wanted to add is that for individuals such as myself who are disabled, um, you can look and research if the company that you're trying to obtain a job from, or if your current company has any lawsuits. Because remember, any lawsuits that are made against a particular organization
Mm.
is public entity. Just like if
Oh.
you file bankruptcy, it becomes a public entity.
Very good point. And yes, the EEO report. When I was a federal employee, I worked in EEO, and as an EEO officer, we definitely had to do what was called the MD 715, which went straight to EEOC every single year. October, we had to do the report, and it was basically a snapshot of what the organization looked like, where we were underrepresented, and what was our plan to move forth to improve our
Yes.
underrepresentation. So yes, I'm very familiar with what you're talking about. Um, so um, let's talk about intersectionality because we're all diverse.
Yes.
Like you just mentioned, you're a female, you're African American, you have disabilities. We can go further. We can talk about social, economical. We're all different. How does that play into race, gender, and all these different things? Can you talk to intersectionality?
Yes. Again, it is very important that in the employment handbook that all of this is quite defined. Companies need to define what diversity looks like for them, what does equity look like for them, what is inclusiveness look like for them. That is just as important as your mission and vision statement. Also, companies need to detail, again, have people sign off on non-disclosure statements. Also, need to have companies need to have trainings in order for people to behave and for order for people to grow and to understand how DEI plays a big part of a company, they need to have training. And so some of the training that goes along with this is culture sensitivity training, which is very important, DEI training. You also, and unfortunately, we need to have active shooting training. Those are the trainings. And now that we have this COVID-19 training, OSHA training now is going to be a big part of how we keep the company safe, how we keep ourselves safe, how we sanitize not just ourselves, but our work environment. So those trainings need to be occur at least 3 of the 4 work items or work quarters of the year.
Very true, especially the OSHA part. And like I said, people think that I've heard people say they want to go back to normal. It's not going to be normal. It's going to be an adjusted. It's going to be
No.
totally different when they do get back to their workplaces. It's going to be different, and going forth,
Yes.
it's going to be a different culture. So absolutely.
Yes.
Let's discuss
Yes.
unemployment. New report just came out, and you mentioned earlier it's worse since the Great Depression. Per the U.S. Bureau of Statistics, it's affecting minorities at a disproportionate rate. Hispanics are at 18.9%, blacks at 16.7%, whites at 14.2%. In April alone, 20.5 million people lost their jobs. That's just in April. Since the virus hit, it has been 33 million people in the US. That is just, I mean, sh- shocking. What do you recommend for job seekers? I know you've been helping a lot of your students find employment opportunities. So please tell our viewers what are some recommendations.
That is an outstanding question, and I wanted to list some opportunities that you need. One, if individuals have not built up their LinkedIn uh, profile, they need to do so. This is your opportunity to get people who you're going to have for your reference, provide references for you. Also have your, this is an opportunity for you to redo or to upgrade your resume. Also, take this as an opportunity. Since we are at stay-at-home orders, this is an opportunity for you to learn a new skill set. I know on LinkedIn they have free courses that you can take. Take those courses. List them as part of your training on your resume. So I always tell people, take this time to learn a new skill set, because a lot of companies that usually charge you, like my grandma used to say, an arm and a leg, are now offering this services for free. So please make sure that you oblige them on that and learn a new skill set. So you need to get your information out there, because I'm telling you, everybody out there, companies are now hiring. And the fields that are hiring like crazy, if you have a CDL license, if you for cashiers, for stockers, HR is hiring. Also, the health industry is hiring. So there's a lot of industries that are hiring. It's up to you to be proactive. So it's time for everyone to be proactive, and get your information out there. So I always tell my students to send them resumes, because you wouldn't believe, but in the COVID-19, because they know that this COVID-19 is not going to be here forever. We as human beings are a resilient and resourceful group of individuals. So please be proactive, because companies are hiring. And one thing that people need to do is learn a skill set on how to do a online interview. So that's something that
Yes,
you are going to learn how to do.
absolutely. Let me look to see if there are any more questions. Yes, free training. There are lots of free training. Um, Shout out to my dad for tuning in. Hey, daddy. Yes, and Shelly points out that people with disabilities are loyal employees, and that's so true. That statistic has been out there for a long time. I forgot the
Yes,
exact quote, but they're very loyal and hard workers, so that definitely should be noted.
yes,
Um, so, can
yes,
you share with us some of your final thoughts to the viewers that are tuning in?
yes. One, I need everybody to be safe. And myself and Miss Mayberry, as us being African Americans, COVID-19 is kind of destroying is destroying our population. It's like our own genocide. So please use hand sanitizers when you go out. Please make sure you do social distancing. Use your face mask. Make sure that you're using gloves, that you're sanitizing. Also, you need to make sure that you're keeping your mental health up. So find something during the day that will make you laugh. Call a friend, read a book, do yoga. I'm just starting to get into yoga, because one, it relaxes my body, and it gets my mind ready to deal with anything. And one thing I'm always tell everybody, that you have to love yourself before someone else can love you, or before you can love somebody else. Be confident in what you do. And people with disabilities are compassionate. We are loyal. We're hard workers, and we're determined. Look at myself. I have a disability, and disabilities are not always disabilities that you can see. So if I'm not in a wheelchair, or a walker, don't think that I don't have a disability. And I always tell people, unless you are my personal physician, you don't know what my disabilities are unless I tell you. So never judge a book by its cover. You have to open up that book to see the content that you have. So when you're giving people who look different than you and I, you actually are opening up the book, and you're learning about a new way of life, which can change the way your company conducts business, and the way that your company can have a positive return on their investment.
Woo, you said a mouthful. Thank you so much for that. Um, and
Thank
how can
you.
individuals get in contact with you, Dr. Robinson?
Yes. Dr. Robinson Strategic Creations LLC is a technology, educational, and staff development company. We're located in Montgomery County, Maryland. My website is now being converted, is being upgraded. Like I'm telling everybody to upgrade yourself, I'm upgrading my website. But you can reach me at 240-560-6843, or just look for me on LinkedIn at Dr. Robinson Strategic Creation, and I will get back to you. Let's all get through this together. Remember that we are all human beings. We need to respect each other. We need to care for each other. We need to love each other. And we will all get through this together because we are lovable, smart, and very successful creatures. But it's going to take you, me, and everyone pulling together to be a team to get through this COVID-19.
Thank you, ma'am. And if you would like to continue to have diverse conversations about intersectionality and to have some free trainings and Winning Wednesday, I would like for you to follow me to my private Facebook group, which is Game Changers. Um, what is it called, Andrew? What is it? Oh, DEI Game Changers, and the link for that is BECLY/DEIGC. I'll put it in the box. Again, is BIT.ly/DEIGC. I'll put it in the box. And we chat every day about diversity and inclusion topics, and I go live once a week and we discuss local and national news topics. So I would love for you to join me in that group. I'd like to again thank Dr. Robinson for joining us on this today, and for all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like and share, and we'll see you again next week for a new edition of Game Changer Chat. Peace, love, and be safe. Bye.
Bye.